What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell as well if you want to be notified every single time I upload a brand new video. Before I get into anything, thank you guys so much. We just hit 1 million views on the channel. Really do appreciate everybody that's come through over the last, it's been about 3 years now, making content on this channel. But my favorite weekend is always draft weekend, and my favorite video is always the Ravens undrafted free agent analysis video. And there's a lot this year. There's 17 players, but if you don't know, every year I put out a video going over all of the Ravens undrafted free agent players so that you guys don't have to go through the lot of research that goes into learning about all these players. Now, before I get into describing any of them, I want to say I wish the best for every single one of these players. This is my breakdown of them. These are my thoughts on them. And I will be giving my thoughts on, the chances I have of them making the team. I wish they could all make the team. I want to root for them, so please let me know your thoughts on every single one of these players. I know there's a few fan favorites in here, so I will get to them. But let's jump right into it. Starting off, the Ravens signed defensive tackle Ka'im Caesar out of Ohio. Not Ohio State, Ohio. He's a 6'2", 310-pound defensive tackle. And the biggest thing with him is he does have sack upside. He had 5.5 sacks last year, but his size translates to more of that run-stuffing defensive tackle spot. And you can tell throughout all of these Ravens undrafted free agent players what positions the Ravens are needing. We're going to get through a lot of defensive tackles and a lot of offensive linemen. Those are the major things that we are going to be talking about. I will be talking more extensively about the other positions, but he's a run-stopping, big defensive tackle. 6'2", 310 pounds, with also 5.5 sacks. Like, he can get after the quarterback. But we do not have a lot of interior defensive tackles, especially not a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And the next couple of guys that I bring up, I do believe they are going to compete for this spot. And very well, one of the next 3 players that I talk about, there may be another defensive tackle later, I think will make the team. I think an interior defensive lineman that is undrafted will make the team. It's going to be a very competitive battle. So do not disregard any of the interior defensive linemen that I do bring up, because it is a spot that we need. And obviously we drafted Tavion, but we don't know exactly where he's going to play. Is he going to play, 3 tech? Is he going to play edge? We need a 1 tech. That's what we need. And I think that Ka'im Caesar could be somebody that could fill that role. I do like this signing. Next up, Division II school out of Colorado State Pueblo, defensive tackle Trey Botts. He's 6'3", 281 pounds, so a little bit leaner. However, a couple of years ago, he did used to play at 305. He played at 305 for 2 consecutive seasons. Then he dropped down to about 280, and that increased significantly the amount of sacks that he started getting. So I think, it's pretty clear that Colorado State Pueblo, they needed a pass rusher rather than a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And he ended up getting 5.5 sacks last season. Again, interesting that both the first 2 guys were able to get sacks as bigger defensive tackles. His size, for a 1 tech, which is what I would expect him to be. I would think he would bulk up, try and become that run stuffing guy, because we don't have it, right? Right now our defensive tackles are Travis Jones, Matt Abike, Broderick Washington. I like all those guys, but we don't have a Brandon Williams, right? We don't have one of those, guys, those Vita Veas that can go out there on, 4th and inches, 3rd and 1 and get that stop. He can bulk up. He's shown he's done it in the past. He could maybe get to that size where, hey, we need that run stuffer. I think he could do it. So Trey Botts, again, another fun fact, 62nd overall draft in the USFL draft. So some teams want him. So again, position that we need and can have the body type. Doesn't right now, but can have the body type to where, hey, he could compete and try and win that spot. Next up, defensive end. I think he's a DT. Cameron Peterson, 6'4", 250 pounds. Now he plays defensive end. He also plays defensive tackle. If he was in a 4-3 scheme, I think he's a 3 tech. Really, that's what I think he is. He's a 3-4 defensive end. He's a 4-3 DT. He's a 3 tech at that size. He was coming out of Southern. He was a Defensive Player of the Year, the Shrine Bowl HBCU Defensive Player of the Week, going up against Grambling. He did have a big sack in that game, and that was the game that ended up putting them to the championship against Jackson State, where I think they got blown out really badly in that game, if I'm remembering correctly. But very physical player. That is what he wants to do. He's obviously very tall for a defensive tackle, and he's not, he's 250 pounds. He's not skinny, but he's not massive in terms of width. But he is able to stay physical. He is able to stay low. And that is not something that you see out of a lot of guys that are his size. No, he's not going to bend. He's not going to give you quick, crazy reactions. He's a interior defensive lineman. So don't expect him to come out like Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is very small, very quick, fat, very agile, but also very powerful. But come on, we shouldn't be comparing any of these guys to Aaron Donald. I do like his game. Again, I think that Trey Botts and Kaim Caesar are all going to be guys that are competing. And I apologize. I'm looking off the screen. I got to look at my notes. There's 17 players on here. I got to look at my notes on all of these players. So I do apologize about that. But also the microphone is off the screen. So I think it sounds a little bit better when I'm looking off to the side as well. Just wanted to apologize if you guys are getting annoyed. Normally I'm looking into the camera if you're new. But that's it for this initial run of interior defensive linemen. There will be other defensive linemen. Now we get into the offensive linemen. Again, a position of need. We obviously drafted Saleh. We drafted Andrew Voorhees. Andrew Voorhees isn't going to be, on the Ravens until really next year. He's just going to be in the building. But offensive line is always a position that you can get undrafted players at. Look at Tristan Colon-Castillo, right? That I think is the most recent one that we brought in that has played for the Ravens as an undrafted free agent. And I think that we brought in a lot of different players that can do a lot of different things, not just one position, not just a left tackle, not just a left guard, not just a center. They've played it all. It's very clear that Tom Monken wants versatility and players that can do it, all. And this is my favorite offensive lineman the Ravens brought in. Connecticut center / offensive guard, Jake Guidon. He's 6'3", 299 pounds. This is what I love about him. He's played center, he's played guard, and he's played tight end at UConn. That's very interesting to me because I think that's something that we may see a little bit this year because the Ravens have so much size on the offensive line and we no longer have Greg Roman. Maybe we start to see these 6 offensive lineman sets, these 7 offensive lineman sets in these 3rd and 1 situations, in these 4th and 1 situations, because the Ravens have been going after massive individuals, right? It's not the undersized offensive lineman outside of Tyler Linderbaum. They're going after 6'5", 6'6". We already have 6'8" in Daniel Faalele. They want big guys. And he's somebody who is athletic. He's played tight end. Maybe you throw him out on the offensive line, in certain packages. Again, not saying he's going to be out there every play, but I think he will actually be competing for a spot. But he's played guard. He's only played 1 year of center, and he played pretty well at UConn playing center. And he's looking to improve. But again, versatility. I love that depth lineman that can play it all, because if your guy gets hurt, you don't want to just have to have a guy that can only play left guard to replace him. You want to have somebody like Patrick McCarry. That's why we gave him a big extension, was he could play center, guard, and tackle. That's crucial in the NFL. That's why he has a roster spot. But I think Jake Guidon would be a really interesting player to follow in this offseason. Next offensive lineman is Tayshawn Manning out of Kentucky, SEC offensive lineman. That already gets me pretty excited because, again, SEC school, best competition, best lineman, best defensive lineman. And they, went to Kentucky, so they had a good offense. The last couple of years, they've had some good running games and things of that nature. He's 6'3", 327 pounds. He's just a guard, but he is a powerful, physical offensive lineman. He's not going to be crazy athletic. He's not going to be pulling and running super hard down the field. He is going to maul you and throw you into the ground. That is SEC football. That is Tayshawn Manning football. He's going to be in a downhill running scheme where you want to snap, put him into a body so he can lay them out. He's limited. He's a backup guard, but he's very good at what he does. Not a bad option for the Ravens. And for a team that is trying to figure out who their starting left guard will be, bringing in an SEC guard that has starting experience is never going to be a problem. Next up, Southern Miss offensive tackle Tykeem Doss. He's 6'5", 373 pounds. I brought it up earlier. The Ravens are going after these really big offensive linemen, and I think that's Todd Monken. Because I feel like in recent years, the Ravens have gone for a little bit of undersized players, but Todd Monken comes in. I mean, we just draft big guy, big guy, big guy, and now 373 pounds, and he's played guard as well as offensive tackle. But the biggest thing about him is that he's huge, right? He's got great reach. He's got big hands to be physical. That is what he's going to bring. Not crazy athletic, not somebody that's going to run 30 yards down the field and get a block, but we're looking for depth pieces. We're looking for guys that are going to make an impact. And you can make an impact if you're that big in some sort of way. And he's going to compete, again, as a versatile offensive lineman, someone that's played guard, that's played tackle. That's something the Ravens are clearly looking for, especially with all of these offensive linemen, undrafted free agent signings, but also in the draft. Pay attention to what the Ravens are doing because it's not what they typically do. But next up, again, I'm sorry if you guys aren't super interested in the offensive linemen. I will get to the more fun positions, the running backs, the wide receivers, the tight ends, the pass rushers. But we've got SMU offensive lineman Jalen Thomas. Jalen Thomas, last season, started at all 5 positions: left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. I brought up versatility earlier. That's what he is. 6'5", 311 pounds. He was PFF All-AAC first team. Again, I don't want to talk too much about all these offensive linemen, but versatility, again, it's just popping up. The Ravens are looking for another guy like a Patrick McCarry, like a Tristan Colon-Castillo that they can just throw across the line. One more offensive lineman, then we get into the fun stuff. We've got Brandon Kipper out of Oregon State, 6'6", 327 pounds. Again, really big, really big offensive lineman. He had 45 starts throughout his collegiate career, which is one of the most all-time at Oregon State. So he is an experienced player. PFF gave him a 75 blocking grade, and I think he had a 77 run blocking grade. But if you don't know much about Oregon State football, I do. I watch Pac-12 football. That's the conference I watch the most. They're a run-heavy team. They have been for the last few seasons. They're one of the most efficient running teams in the country. That's what they did last year, the year before that. And he was a big part of that. He's been starting for 4 years over there. What do the Ravens want to do? Probably run the football with Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, maybe the guy that I bring up next, Justice Hill. They want to get the ball in the hands of their running backs so they can use their size on the offensive line and their scheme to blow right by you. We got through it. Now we're on to the fun positions, starting off with Eastern Carolina University running back Keaton Mitchell. This is my favorite free agent signing from the Ravens. I'm assuming a lot of you have another favorite. We'll get into him later. But Keaton Mitchell, I looked at prior to the draft. He was somebody that I did watch, and I think he kind of reminds me of the Ravens going after Tyler Beatty. Very different players, but I think they want to use them in a similar role. They ended up not using Tyler Beatty last year because the Broncos, I believe it was the Broncos, they claimed him off of the practice squad and signed him. But Keaton Mitchell is speed. That is what he is. He ran a 4.37 40-yard dash, I believe the second fastest among running backs. I know number 1 was Devin Achane. But you want to get the ball in space to him. He is a dynamic football player that can catch the ball, that can run the football. He's returned kicks, which I think is crucial, because we've had problems when Devin Duvernay gets slightly banged up. Devin Duvernay, maybe he wants to get out on the wide receiver, side more, so he doesn't want to return kicks as much. Well, we can use Keaton Mitchell. He has been a kick returner. And that's what we've done with Justice Hill. We tried to do that with Tyler Beatty. We've tried to do it with a lot of these guys. Keaton Mitchell could be the next one. But Todd Monken wants players that he can get the ball to in space, and that is what Keaton Mitchell thrives in. He's great with balance. He's great with change of direction. He's great at seeing a hole, picking a hole, and bursting through it before anybody can touch him. He led the country last season in 10-plus yard runs. He is going to get in space, and once he's there, he's very difficult to take down. I love that guy. I think he's going to be on the Ravens 53-man roster. I do believe they keep 4 running backs. He's a guy that I would keep my eye on. If you're doing a pool for Ravens undrafted free agent rookies, Keaton Mitchell would be my guy as the number one choice. Next up, another running back, Owen Wright out of Monmouth. He is very different from Keaton Mitchell. He's 5'11", 225 pounds. He is a short yardage power back. I was questioning whether or not he was a running back. Like, I was like, is he a fullback or is he a running back? Because he's just like, give it to him at the goal line. Give it to him at the goal line. You know, you need 1 yard. You need 1 yard. You can do it. Fun fact, though, we did have a 99-yard rushing touchdown last season. There is tape on him, or at least a highlight reel. I know a lot of these smaller school guys, you know, it's difficult to find highlights or find game tape of. You can find it online, so I do recommend you guys check it out because, you know, it's not bad to check out these players' tape. Obviously, Keaton Mitchell, you know, the higher profile names, they're going to have, you know, you can actually watch the film rather than just the highlights, which is what I like to do. Watch the overall film to see, you know, not just the great plays, let's see the bad ones as well. But you can find a little bit of Owen Wright highlights if you want to check them out. But he is not a pass catcher. 2 catches last year, but he is just somebody that is going to come in, fight through contact, be physical, not a fast player. But he does get to his top speed relatively quickly, so it's not something where it's taking him forever to build momentum. He gets the ball, and he's running pretty quick from the jump, and he's going to lower his shoulder. He's going to put it into your chest, and he's going to try and fight for those extra yards. He's a goal line running back, and if Gus Edwards, if J.K. Dobbins were to go down, having him on the Ravens practice squad or having him, you know, vying for that, you know, 4th, 5th spot on the Ravens, you know, kind of list of players that they would go through, I don't think it's a bad signing whatsoever, just because he provides value in that he can get into the end zone. We've had problems with that in recent years. If the Ravens end up needing help for a short line back, he could be that guy. Next up, tight end Brian Walker out of Shepherd. He is 6'4", 240 pounds. Last season, he put up 799 yards and 5 touchdowns. Very difficult to find anything on him. But I think I've been able to find 3 plays of his. If anybody has anything else, please let me know. I was looking. I spent a long time looking. But he was actually on the receiving end of 2 historic touchdowns because their quarterback tied and set the record for most passing touchdowns, I think in a Division II school all time, but I know it was an all-time passing touchdown record. I mean, he caught both of those passes. So you are able to find those plays. The first one, when I believe he ties the record, very standard. He's just running, you know, a 15-yard post, you know, skinny post, and then just catches it. He's kind of open, walks into the end zone, normal play. But the other one was actually a pretty decent catch. It was a high point, you know, jumps up, high points the ball, comes down with it, 2 hands, you know, scores a touchdown a little bit behind him. That's the type of thing you want to see out of a pass catching wide receiver or tight end, is you want to see him be able to high point that football. That's what he does. But again, very limited film that you can find on him. Could not find any combine stats. He doesn't look to be overly fast. He does looks like he uses his size, however. And the Ravens love to develop tight ends. I think he absolutely will be on the practice squad and at least vying for a practice squad spot, you know, because the Ravens do love their tight ends. Speaking of tight ends, another guy, Travis Vokolek out of Nebraska, 3-year starter. Again, love to hear that in the Big Ten, you know, Power 5 conference. He's played against some pretty good football players. 6'6", 259 pounds. That is the ideal frame for a tight end. If you find someone that's 6'6", you're going to be very happy, because the biggest thing about tight end is it's mostly about development. College tight ends aren't going to be good blockers, and he's not an amazing pass catcher. He projects to be a blocking tight end. You know, he does, you know, he's not a horrible pass catcher. I'm not trying to say that by any means. You know, he has played with mobile quarterbacks. So when, you know, they roll out, he knows how to react, which obviously we have Lamar Jackson. If he rolls out, we want tight ends that know what they're doing when the quarterback rolls out. That's what makes Mark Andrews so great. But he, you know, he doesn't have a good route tree. He's not a great route runner. He has the size to become a really good run blocker, really good pass blocker, and enough skill to make it as a pass catcher. That's my thoughts on him. Next up is my expectation which is the most popular fan favorite undrafted free agent the Ravens have signed, and I am a fan of him as well, Dante Demus Jr. out of Maryland. I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot about him, but if you do not, he is 6'3", 212 pounds. And what he is he is a jump ball wide receiver. You want to throw that football in the air and let him use his unbelievable athleticism to go up and get it. Very long arms, good vertical, obviously great size, and he's done it throughout his entire career. We've been asking, Ravens fans have been asking for that big body jump ball wide receiver. Maybe it would be Shamar Bridges. Maybe we could use Miles Boykin. Maybe it's Tylan Wallace. Maybe it's James Prochet. Maybe they can be the jump ball guy. Dante Demus Jr. is a jump ball guy. He has a very good chance of making this roster as the 6th, 7th wide receiver on this team because he also has the size to be able to block, which the Ravens don't have any wide receivers really that have the size to block. I know a lot of you are big fans of him. I had to hype him up because I think he is a very good free agent signing. Next up, Jeremy Lucien, cornerback out of Vanderbilt, SEC. Do I consider Vanderbilt SEC football? Not really, but he played against SEC talent. The biggest thing about him is his size. He's 6'2", 199 pounds. He is slow. He ran a 4.69 40-yard dash. I've also seen 4.70 as the time for him. And I will talk about this with the next guy as well. But the Ravens are apparently going after slower cornerbacks. We drafted Kyu Blue Kelly, who ran I believe it was a 4.53, might have been a 4.52. We go after somebody that ran a 4.69. I'm thinking that their expectation is to have 2 safeties over the top based on these players. If that's the case, he can be fine. He's very good with the ball in the air. He has a 37-inch vertical. He's obviously 6'2". So when you have that safety over top, he can be okay. But you cannot use him. You cannot have him press. That is going to be a difficult transition for him. But again, if we run the right scheme, you could put him out there in situations. Maybe the Ravens try and use him as a little bit of a, as a safety in dollar packages. He's a really intriguing player to go after because of that speed and how much of a concern it is. I wonder why they went with him. Maybe it's just to get, practice reps against a bigger corner because the Ravens don't have much size at the cornerback position. Next up, we only have a few more. Don't worry. UTSA corner, University of Texas San Antonio, cornerback Corey Mayfield Jr. Now, he's not the UTSA guy that I wanted last year, which was Tariq Woolen. He ended up being pretty good. But he's 5'10", 190 pounds. Again, he's slower cornerback. Ran 4.61, which is a little bit faster than the Vanderbilt guy, Jeremy Lucien. But he had 3 interceptions last year. He's physical. He's scrappy. He's going to get in your face. And that's the type of corner that I see the Ravens most typically have. Whether it's Anthony Averett, whether it's, Daryl Worley. They love these guys. They're just kind of obviously Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, but they love these guys that are just going to try and mess with you. They're going to try and, throw you off your game. And that's what Corey Mayfield's all about. He was able to get interceptions. He was able to attack the ball. He was able to be a really solid player. So I like the signing. I think he has a better chance than a guy like Jeremy Lucien. Not trying to pit them against each other, but the slower speed is really making me think maybe the Ravens are going into, a 2 safety over the top type of defense. Next up, this guy I think is a lock to make the team. That's a joke. Delaware quarterback Nolan Henderson. If you didn't know, the last time a Delaware quarterback, I believe, made the NFL, I know drafted, it was Joe Flacco. Nolan Henderson is not Joe Flacco. He's 6'1", 195 pounds. Last year put up 3,200 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Also ran the ball for 149 yards and 4 touchdowns. The reason to bring him in is a practice squad quarterback. That is what he is. I don't think he's expecting to make the team. We have a Pro Bowl quarterback as a backup quarterback and a Pro Bowl quarterback as a starting quarterback. But you do need, every team needs practice squad quarterbacks, and that is not a bad thing. I hope he's going to get opportunities probably in, the preseason to help continue the streak. But overall, I just think hey, going after quarterbacks is never a bad thing. Last year we had Anthony Brown, who started a game as an undrafted free agent rookie quarterback. And it was a big game. So, I think that's a good sign. I don't want to talk too much about him because, again, we already have a lot of quarterbacks. Next up, we have Texas State defensive lineman Levi Bell, 6 feet tall, 260 pounds. He gets after the quarterback. He's undersized, but he gets after the quarterbacks. He had 6 sacks last season. Pretty surprising for somebody of that size, but he was noticeable on the football field. When you were watching Texas State, he was around. And he's going to put his hand in the ground. He's going to rush the passer up the middle. I think, again, I brought it up earlier. The Ravens are trying to get themselves another defensive tackle at depth. I think one of them will end up making the team. I don't think he has the body type for it. I think they're looking for more of the bigger bodies that'll stop the run. But he had a 92 PFF grade last year. He was doing something. It was clear that he was the best player on that defense. So I don't know about him. I also seen people say like maybe he could play fullback a little bit. Remind you of somebody, a defensive tackle. We could transition to a fullback, Pat Ricard. Maybe as a backup, fullback, defensive lineman, special teamer, that sort of thing. Kind of like how Patrick Ricard started his career. Maybe it's in the cards for him. I'm rooting for him. Next up, the final player is Malik Ham, linebacker out of Lafayette. He is from Baltimore. He's 6'2", 257 pounds, and he is an edge rusher. Last season, he put up 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. The 3 forced fumbles, again, talked about it, out over the draft with the Ravens' recent draft selections of Ojabo, Tavius, and then going after in undrafted free agency, Malik Ham. Ravens want to turn the ball over. They want forced fumbles. They don't just want sacks. Sacks aren't good enough. I think that, we're going to see a competition at outside linebacker because we haven't, we have Dalen Hayes, but we haven't signed JPP. We haven't signed Justin Houston. And I think Malik Ham could compete for a defensive line, as an edge rusher, a defensive lineman role, though. That's it. Those are all the players so far. If anybody else signs, I'll obviously, potentially make videos about them, if it's a wide receiver, if it's a running back, and that sort of thing. But let me know in the comment section down below your favorite players in the Ravens undrafted free agency class. Again, rooting for all these guys. Mine is Keaton Mitchell. Also really like Dante Demus Jr. But thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I will see all of you again tomorrow.